So this is my enclosure. The first thing that you'll notice is that it's not an actual enclosure. I originally intended to make an enclosure, but just the ambient temperature down in this basement is already a bit of a problem while printing with low temperature stuff like PLA and flexible materials. So I decided to just permanently have it no actual enclosing. The reason that I ended up making it, and the reason why I love it so much, is that it allows me to organize the filament input for the multi-material unit. And also, I have plans to start mounting stuff like my tools to it to, make those more accessible and not just lying on my desk. I also mounted a little NFC sticker here that when you tap your phone against it, opens off Octoprint on my phone, which is really nice. So it's more of just a platform for organization than it is for actual printing quality. So I wanted to go over my dry boxes because I did try a previous dry box. The Spanner Hands dry box was the one that attracted me most first because it looked very airtight. It had a piece for the PTFE fitting, which I love. But I ended up making a lot of these. I still have them over there, but I hated them because they were so difficult to use on a daily basis. So imagine these sitting side by side to each other. Every time you need to work with the filament inside it, you have to take it into 3 pieces. Now my hands are full right now, meaning that I can't actually hold the filament that I need to put in this or take out of this. I don't recommend them anymore, which is very sad because I made so many of them. I much prefer the Prusa dry boxes, which I think I heard you already made, just because they're easy to open, they're easy to work with. Let's see. Let's get this out of here. The MMU is always a little hard to work with. There we go. So, one of the things that you noticed first was that I don't actually use the buffer that came with the multi-material unit. I made a few modifications to it as well, which I enjoyed at the time before I knew how much I hated using it. I added these pieces that added the PTFE fittings and also gave you a little more finger room to feed things in to them. And also I made these surfaces to attach 3M command strips to so you can mount it to things. So at one point I was looking for a better buffer solution because I knew this thing was so difficult to load that I wanted something different. And somehow I ended up, here, come over here and look at this. If you look in the back, you'll see that the filament path goes directly out of the dry box into a PTFE tube and then down and then around to the back of the multi-material unit. There's no buffer solution, and the solution is surprisingly simple. I ended up finding this while I was trying to reconfigure my buffer, and the way it works is when you retract the filament, it will simply spool up in the back and just be open to the air. The PTFE tubing prevents it from going back into the dry box, and I've never had a problem with this solution. My complaint, obviously, is that it looks very unorganized, but I was worried that it would tangle. It never does. I was worried that it would snap the filament when it retracted the loop. It never has. This buffer solution is also much easier to load since you don't have to deal with the actual buffer. It's just a case of feeding, here, get the camera in here, feeding the filament in through here until it comes out the back. And then you can go ahead and drop this in, not worry about it anymore. And you have a space to pull it through and feed it effectively. then you just hit load filament, and the filament path is very simple. You saw that I had the magnetic fittings on the back of the MMU, which is really nice for being able to pull out filament without pulling it all the way from the back. They align quite nicely and they attach very easily. So I'm very happy with this buffer solution. However, I do have some future plans to try. Prince Snitchell, let's see, I wrote his name down so I didn't, PrinceSnitchell.at made this beautiful buffer solution that takes 5 PTFE tubes in, spits them out on the other side. But the cool thing is, it has these one-way switches. So filament can feed in and it won't come back, it will accumulate and loop inside every time very reliably. It's a beautiful design, and the last time I tried it, I noticed that it added a lot of friction in my filament path. So I'm wary about going back and trying it again. However, I think a lot of that friction was my fault, so I have to give it a shot again at some point. It would fix the, visual disturbance of that filament building up there. Let's see, we've got my MMU mods, which I'm really happy about. So I've made a few subtle changes to my multi-material unit. The first of which, and one of my favorites, is this modification by, let's see, it was Chuck G who made this screw retainer. You'll notice that when I unscrew the top of the MMU, there's an extra piece on top that prevents the screws from getting lost when it's opened. There's no way to lose the screws anymore. I did not know how much I wanted this. The next modification that I made was a fantastic selector replacement by 78 Zeros. It has a hole that you can see the selector through. It has a better blade placement, and the best part about it is that it has a magnet beneath the steel ball in the selector that allows, that prevents it from getting jammed with stray filament strands and other, dust. It's great. It's probably my second most recommended multi-material mod. My first most is a bit hard to see with this setup here, but let's see if we can swivel this around so I can show you. Is way in the back here, you can see that the PTFE tubes that go in to my MMU are secured by the N10 fittings. This is great. It was the first mod I installed. I never even installed the default PTFE tubing interface because I knew I wanted this from the very beginning. So those are the only modifications I made to the multi-material unit, but I consider them necessary now. They're fantastic. Let's see, is there anything else I wanted to cover? Oh, right, my steel sheet holder. This is just, I didn't write down who made this, but there are several like it, and I'll make sure to include the creator in the comments here. And it's just a steel sheet holder that I've 3M command stripped to the side of my enclosure. And it just makes it easy to swap steel sheets and gives me a place to store them. I think that's it. That's my enclosure setup. If you have any more questions, I'd love to answer them. I'm really proud of how well this works right now. And yeah, thanks for asking. Have a good one.